Hello and welcome to the very first show of Deep Dive with OA. I am Omar Abedin, Project Director of the National Incubation Center in Karachi, and today we are honored to have with us our very first guest, Shahbaz Ali Jamote from TelloTalk. Hello Shahbaz and welcome to the show. So what were the first three challenges that you faced when you embarked on this journey?
You know, one thing that we really lucked out on is because the team was already there. That was a chemistry that was already in space. So, but the team was also, they looked like me. We were older people, you know, well settled in their lives. And so it was an expensive proposition to keep as well. So one thing that we knew was we needed a little bit of funding day one in order for us to do. But what we were able to do was do that very quickly because the team was experienced and you know, the narrative made sense. Like, here's a team product fit, which is clearly happening. They have done messaging, they understand the market, they'll be able to deploy that. So we had this initial capital coming in quickly as well. The other good thing for us was because the team was experienced, we were able to actually deploy the product very quickly. So April 2017, we came together. July 2017, the product was on the stores. So we were able to build the local messenger very quickly and able to deploy that too. But the one thing that we made a mistake of and that you know we were unaware of the challenges that was going to come forth is we have been a very, very successful B2B team. We had successfully deployed business products that we sold to other businesses, right? This was a consumer product. And we were able to push that out and we were able to actually even integrate businesses literally on month one. So we had Coke Studio Music on the month of our launch. We had 3 corporate institutes who were already integrated to do B2C chatting. But then we realized that we hadn't really thought of it from the user's perspective. So we went back and went deeper into that. So Tello's journey from then till right now is all about iterating for the end user. When we started to define and understand exactly who we are building for and why this distinctive advantage would be, there's one thing to have a hyper-localized messenger. One of the things was clear to us. We saw those early signs in which Pakistan mein aap dekhte hain, a lot of people are sending each other voice notes, mostly on WhatsApp. The reason being they can't chat in each other's languages, especially people from tier 2, tier 3 cities or certain education class. So that's where we knew that we had to give them the option to talk to each other in each other's languages. So we had English, Urdu, Pashto, Punjabi, Saraiki, Balochi, all these keyboards day one that we integrated and gave it to the people so that they could understand each other better. But once we started to do that, we knew that that wasn't enough. It has to be even deeper of an understanding for that. Because one of the biggest opportunities, which I still believe is underserved by the tech companies who are coming out of Pakistan, is when we look at the total market, it's 200 million people, it's very, very attractive, right? But if you look at our age groups, 63% of Pakistan is under the age of 25. That's a huge chunk of Gen Zs which are in this nation and nobody's really building products for them. And we knew that if we are to succeed as a social network, we have to think of it not something that we are building just for ourselves, but actually for them, because it's an interface which is meant for them first. Yeah. So when we started to focus on that and started to build for young Pakistan, for Pakistani Gen Zs, then it started to actually morph into something completely different. It became much, much richer. And then we also started to see all of our key growth metrics start to climb up exponentially. And so that had been a huge learning experience for us, is to do the consumer part first and the business part would follow. That's the easy part for us to do.
Amazing. Yeah. So what are some of those key metrics that you look at and where do you stand today?
So without revealing specific numbers, the only reason being...
you must reveal specific numbers. Absolutely.
Because these sessions, they're kind of frozen in time, right? And somebody looking at it a few years, months down the line, you know, it just becomes outdated. So, but to give you kind of a perspective, things that we worry about is it's very easy to acquire a large base of users in Pakistan. It's very easy to do that because the CAC is so low. Because there's lower competition, you can actually, whatever money you raise, if you throw at...
For the audience, CAC is customer acquisition cost.
Customer acquisition cost. Whenever we do advertising on Facebook or Google or Instagram to acquire a brand new user, it's cheaper than it is in the rest of the regions. Which is why sometimes if you end up seeing some weird product ads showing up in your social media feed, it's because we are such a cheap market that those guys are spending money just to balloon up their user base numbers and then using us to get to that milestone in which they raise their funding. So that's what's happening, right? But it's easy to game that system. But we knew that if we were to appear as a quality social network, then our currency is actually engagement time. It's how much time is being spent per user per session, and also what our power user curve is going to be, which basically means is a user returning to the platform on a daily basis for 7 days in a week and 30 days in a month. So that's where we look at like who's our stickiest users.
Daily active, weekly active, monthly active.
Slightly different than that, because this is more has to do with retention data, right? Because monthly active users, you can acquire, let's just say, 500,000 users in a month and declare them as your monthly active users, even though by the end of the month there were 0 left. Right? This is all about how much did you retain, right? So is that curve going up or not?
I see, okay.
Yeah. So it's like, here's somebody who came in on day 1, and day 30, that user was using...
What percentage of them were still with you?
And by with you, it means they use, by virtue of us being a social network, our standards are very high. We want that user to come to the platform daily. But not only once a month. If you were a banking app, you're like, yeah, mahine mein ek martaba aaya, bill pay kiya, and he left, right? So that's a good metric for a bank. But for us, it's like, did they come multiple times a day for us or not? So those are the kind of things we started to worry about, like who are those users, where do we do? Once we started to focus on those and start to improve those, that's really where we started to find our stickiness and numbers happening as well. Another challenge that we experienced was also, TelloTalk is also distinctive amongst any other social network in Pakistan, is our entire infrastructure is in Pakistan. All of our key communication services, all of our user profile sensitive data is actually hosted in Pakistan, because we've had experience launching those kind of services on another medium before. And we knew that even though right now OTT apps aren't really regulated, but if we are to, let's just say, launch payments on a social network, then it was critical for us to be ready day 1 in order for us to do that in year 3, for example. So with that, those scaling options become limited, because internationally cloud services are much, much cheaper, and they're so elastic and they're so matured that you're able to throw lots of masses of users at them and scale easily. But in our case, we actually had to recalibrate many times in order to get to that point. And that itself was such a learning journey to truly build something which is made in Pakistan and by Pakistan. Each line of code is ours. Each infrastructure calibration is meant to scale this audience on this cloud and this bandwidth of data, that it just became something of its own, which is very, very unique for Pakistan.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So are you able to share your total user base?
Yeah, I can. So far, TelloTalk has about 1.5 million users thus far. And what we are very happy about is what our DAO-MAO ratio is how many monthly active, daily active to monthly active users that we are.
Yeah.
So those are the kind of numbers that we are very happy about. Some of the stuff that I can share with you is usually kya hota hai ki for a messaging app, a session time is usually about 40 to 45 seconds, because you read a message, you write a message, you send it across, right? For us, a session time has now grown to 16 minutes. So because people can do so much more than just messaging, because they can they can read local published news, they can share content, they can be in a chat room. So there's a lot more than just messaging that TelloTalk allows users to do, and it's all meant local language content. So we saw that our user time spent on the platform is actually growing exponentially, so which we are very, very happy about.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So what are your plans to scale within Pakistan, and then are there any plans to scale internationally as well?
Well, the thesis is Pakistan would be testbed number 1, and because it's addressing a very unique proposition, because here's a homegrown, meant for local populace, local language supported, local content supported platform, which can be a social national rails on which you can bolt on services on top. So any third-party service you can actually bolt on top, kind of like what WeChat does, what Zalo does in Vietnam.
Oh, I see where this is going.
Like
okay.
All those can do. So once you start to establish that, or for example, we are partnered with 72 partners in the local ecosystem, everybody from content publishers to newspaper organizations, to radio channels, to corporate organizations who are using TelloTalk for either business to customer communications, for internal communications, and also to publish content for our current user base as well. So once we start to do that, and let's just say build payments on top, build social commerce on top, those kind of services just become possible. If you do that as a model, you can take the same thing and take it to Middle East, or take it to Bangladesh, or take it to other parts of CIS, etc. as well, and deploy it over there. So it just becomes a playbook to be adopted elsewhere. But right now, honestly, our total focus is Pakistan, because the market opportunity is so delectable, it's so big, and the timing is just right to plant this as a seed, because we see this as a forest in the future.
Yeah, so talking about timing, the recent outage of 3 gigantic social media networks that are in fact one entity must have given you guys quite the electric boost. What was the result?
It was really fun to see, because we saw our messaging traffic quadruple on that particular day, right? And it was huge. What I was most happy about is that our servers were steady, pata bhi nahi chala, right? They were able to handle all of that because we are built locally. So it's able to take care of spikes, right? But this isn't the first time this has happened. Back in January, when WhatsApp was changing its rules in terms of sharing of its user data with Facebook, then we saw this mass migration of users onto other social networks as well. And I think in that one single day, we had 100,000 signups coming in as well. So that thing happened for about 2-3 days as well. So that surge had also happened back then too. But we knew that these joys are temporary, right? And our journey is longer than just that, right? So unless something like this happens on a permanent basis, which is unlikely and shouldn't happen, honestly.
नहीं, एक बेचारा है ना नेटवर्क जो बंद चल रहा है काफी दिनों से.
उसके साथ तो होती रहती है ज़्यादती मेरे ख्याल से. But at the end of the day, which also kind of highlights the value of being regulated locally, because somebody who's not here will not be able to understand what blasphemy law is, or what kind of content is and is not appropriate to be broadcasted, right? Because the exposure to that culture, to that society isn't really there. So only a Pakistani understands certain kind of sentiments, what kind of things are right or wrong, what things do we celebrate or not, what do we feel when India plays Pakistan in a cricket match. Only a Pakistani knows that pain, right? So we are able to articulate that, we are able to celebrate those small things, locally together. And we're able to, most importantly, we can change any part of the platform that we want according to what the needs of the society is going to be, because we are able to do that. You can't do that with a platform that's not in Pakistan or focused on Pakistan.
हाँ, वो management control आपके पास होता ही नहीं है कभी भी.
हाँ, or cultural sensitivities. Like if tomorrow we want to launch Barohi language, we can do that, because there's a desire to engage in that, for a certain part of society or a community. To do that, we can build that. Nobody else would care enough to build, to become hyper niche in terms of what communities can come on board or not.
Very cool यार. तो इस वक्त अगर आप कह रहे हैं तकरीबन 1.5 million का user base है, largely concentrated in Karachi, I would imagine.
That's the fun part actually. So usually क्या होता है कि when you start to acquire users, it comes from bigger cities, because that's where most exposure of the ad spent is. But when we start to look into our power users, people who stick to the system the most and spend the most amount of time, when we start to look at it's tier 2, tier 3, even tier 4 cities. Karachi doesn't even show up in our top 5 cities.
Really?
So when we started to see that, that was very, very interesting for us, and we knew that we were truly building for the masses. And people who care about things, very different things, similar things, but in a different way. So which is why everything from our communication to, what we put out as ads and what's going to be the copy, it all changed. It's all very Urdu-centric. At best, we'd use Romanized Urdu, because we knew that our audience is sitting over there. So that 18 to 24-year-old Pakistani kid who is suffering from, who isn't very socially mobile, who can't find new friends beyond the ones that are on his contact list, they were able to connect on things that they found in common with others who are miles across, that otherwise they wouldn't have discovered. They had heard somebody who's interested in cricket, or who's interested in Bollywood, or interested in भेड़ बकरियाँ, ठीक है ना, और agriculture में है, उसको खेती बाड़ी का उसका भी काम है, मेरा भी काम है. We can chat with each other. We can be in a chat room where other people are also there who are not part of my immediate social network, and I can find new friends. Once that started to happen, we just saw that this social network expansion need was happening very organically and on the platform. So once we started to do that and focus on those people and solving their problems, it really flew.
तो आपके लेट्स से अगले 3 साल के जो टॉप 2-3 गोल्स हैं या ऑब्जेक्टिव्स हैं वो क्या हैं?
Immediately for us, inshallah, is to address financial independence and financial inclusion for these users. Is because I don't think any fintech or even financial institution services providers have 18 to 24-year-olds as their priority customer. उनके लिए कभी कोई बनाने की ज़हमत नहीं करेगा. It's not a priority need for them. For us, it's the only need. We're like, what if, because the moment these people buy a smartphone, come online for the first time, they rush towards social media platforms, right? So might as well build them services where they're aggregating already, rather than asking them to download 10 more apps. So with that theory in mind, and inshallah with the payments alliances that we are going to introduce, we really want them to have access to digital payments, and to make sending and receiving payments as easy as sending and receiving messages. So we have built that actually already, and pending any unforeseen delays, we should be inshallah launching very, very soon. We can't commit on a deadline right now because frankly speaking, it's hard to. But that's a key goal for us, because we truly believe that's a transformative trigger, and it's an important and underserved service element that hasn't been given to basically a community that I think would need it the most. Because rather than once you start to build that, then there are other things that open up as well. One thing that's very near and dear to us in TelloTalk is also our creators economy. So we've got people who are creating content and sharing with other TelloTalk users, and that's where it becomes their calling card. That here's somebody who's interested in a certain kind of content, they publish a lot more. कोई शेरो शायरी की बातें कर रहे हैं, किसी का दिल टूटा है उसकी बात की है, तो इस तरह की चीज़ें वो उस पर डाल रहे होते हैं, and other people tend to kind of gravitate towards that as well. And we've got people who have got followings of over 11,000, 12,000 each as well. So once we start to see that, we're like, here's a way in which they can monetize their fan bases directly if we can build payments for them as well. So no other social network actually offers them that. So which, in our opinion, kind of like not only showcases the value of the platform, but it transforms that free time that those users have into something productive and something that we believe would be our contribution to financial inclusion as well. So
amazing. So are you one of the 14 or 15 companies that is currently waiting for an EMI approval?
No. So for us, like I said, our focus is to build that social network rail, right? Everything that we do on top is an alliance with somebody.
So somebody will come in and provide those services.
Yes.
I see.
So it could be multiple financial services partners that will join hands with us and launch those kind of services with us. And we give the user the choice whether they want to have bank X or fintech Y or etc. And they can choose, and they'll still be in the same ecosystem, able to perform the same services. So our whole job is exactly what was in the value-added services sector. Okay? We're just the medium provider, and make sure that all of these elements can connect seamlessly on the platform.
So the competitor of yours that went offline suddenly and left everyone in the lurch has followed a strategy where they've gone extremely broad without going deep. Now they're beginning to go deep in some areas.
Yeah.
You have, on the other hand, taken a strategy which is you found a segment and you're now going deep into that segment. And as you go, you will continue broadening because organically people will be attracted to the depth of services that you're offering. Is that right? Absolutely.
And as a matter of fact, if you look at any social network, that's how they grew. The first target was always the youth, whether it's Facebook, Snapchat, Insta. That's how it started, because and then the rest of the people end up following as well. But if they can find value and if we can create it for them, then the rest will follow, which we are not really worried about. Worst case scenario, there's 100 million Pakistanis that we will be serving.
Just 100.
It's a huge TAM already.
Yeah, when we talk about these numbers, particularly with people from Europe, they get kind of shocked because, you have countries there with 2 million population, right?
True.
In fact, you have countries with 600,000 population as well. So when आप बताते हैं कि जी 10 करोड़ लोग डिजिटल ऑनलाइन, बाकी तो छोड़ दें, 10 करोड़ तो ऑनलाइन है.
Exactly.
तो थोड़ा उनका मीटर घूम जाता है कि भाई ये आप कौन से कितने जीरोस, आपने कोई गलती तो नहीं कर दी जीरोस के अंदर.
Exactly.
So yeah.
What's also important to note over here is that, for example, like a smaller market, like when I say smaller market, I mean population size, like like even England, or let's just say Dubai, take a very small market, or Saudi, but the value of the user is much higher because they're able to. There's more purchasing power, and
per capita income is
per capita is much higher,
disproportionately much higher. Yeah.
So if you look at it in a similar way to what's in the communication sector in Pakistan, right? The biggest telco in Pakistan is Jazz, and 60 million plus users. But to get to those 60 million users, it took them 20 years or so, and tens of thousands of people employed, franchise network, infrastructure network, licenses, advertising, to get to this point. To me, the second largest telco in Pakistan would be WhatsApp, because 40 million or so users provides the same service, communication, right? Calling, video, messaging. They do all of that, right? But the key difference over there is, for Mobilink at least, there's an ARPU per user. There's an average revenue per user, which is nearly about $2 or so in Pakistan. And for WhatsApp, everything is being absorbed by Facebook for whatever reason as well, right? So once you start to build, in my opinion, commercial services on top, which means something to the end user, you can unlock that ARPU on the social network as well. To me, that actually makes this total addressable market, the TAM, even more delectable. Because like I said, the difference between us and any other smaller nation is the value of the user, and the value of the user becomes higher once you start to make them financially empowered and bring them into the transaction system.
I think that's such a good term, unlocking that customer, because it works in both ways, right? The customer themselves feel imprisoned by their own lack of access.
Yes.
And that's why we have this huge trend of people buying smartphones, and जिसकी 10,000 रुपए तनख्वाह है वो फिर भी 300 रुपए का बंडल ले ही लेता है, because for him that's his access to the rest of the world, and that's something that we have not traditionally in Pakistan catered to. वो जो 20 मिलियन अकाउंट होल्डर्स हैं पाकिस्तान में, और जो 2 मिलियन टैक्स फाइलर्स हैं, या 3 मिलियन टैक्स फाइलर हो गए होंगे अब, वही उन्हीं लोगों के पीछे पूरी सारा धंधा उन लोगों के पीछे भाग रहा है. बट ये जो ह्यूज मैस ऑफ सीथिंग मैसेज ऑफ ह्यूमैनिटी जो है, they have been ignored and they feel locked up. So you're giving them a key.
Exactly.
And you're giving yourself a key as well.
That's true. And we believe not only these people will come online for the first time in terms of financial inclusion, but the velocity of transactions will also increase. They might be micro in nature to start off with, but these are the kind of people who will be using it the same way they use it to send each other messages, right? And then it becomes so easy. And then you can just expand it, like you truly mentioned, that we could just expand it horizontally and add more people onto it as well. So we really see that as an exciting, untapped segment that honestly we're working day and night to get towards.
So in terms of your objectives, coming back to that, if I were to say go from 1.5 million users to 10 million users, would that be appropriate?
That is true, but honestly, once again, user base acquisition is a lesser of a priority for us, because that will happen. But value creation is so important, because then that user network becomes organic. Because here's a platform that does something which is so unique, and you can find value in it. And then I think by osmosis alone, because so many people end up using it, that you'll get to that number. So uski fikr kam hai. It's an important metric, because when you're fundraising, you want to showcase all of that as well. But for us, day and night, we think about retention, value, payments building, ecosystem partner integration. Once you start to do that, then it becomes a very valuable platform. Then user growth will happen naturally. And will happen all of a sudden at once. So so that happens. Yeah.
So on the fundraising note, are you fundraising right now?
We're always fundraising. So if you're interested, let me know. We've got
we'll talk. We'll talk. But so just for the audience, what are you looking to raise right now?
So we've done 2 rounds already. So we did a seed round of about 1.6 million back in November 2019. And then we did a very quick, unannounced pre-Series A round, which was about 1.1 million. We were able to do that. And we just put that money to work. We didn't really announce it or anything. We like, kaam karte hain. And now we're at that point where all these elements have come together, where we really need to have capital or jet fuel in order to get to our next milestone.
Basically.
Well, right, yeah. So for that, I can't go into specific numbers yet, but it's going to be...
Well, consider this a pitch to about 200,000 people. It's the world's most cost-effective pitch. 10 seconds and you reach everyone from Harry Stebbings down. So, I would encourage you to put a number on it and say, look, this is what we're looking to raise, because hesitation is, जो डर गया वो मर गया भाई. पैसे तो आपने raise करने हैं ना.
Yeah. So for the next round, or at least for us to get to our next set of big goals, it would require at least about $7 to $10 million for us to get to that point.
See, that wasn't that hard.
Yeah.
And at what valuation though?
That is the
big
only.
question.
Yeah.
That is the big question.
Exactly.
I understand.
Yeah.
I would imagine that you would be looking at a valuation north of 50 million at least.
There's a couple of ways to look into this.
It's just my guess. You don't have to confirm or deny. It's fine.
Yeah.
It's more for my own, because that we've heard recently of a couple of startups that have raised really large pre-seed rounds that have put their valuations at $100 million, and you're like scratching your head, because abhi tak to tech bhi nahi bani hai, MVP bhi nahi hai, but $100 million valuation.
Yeah.
And I think that's largely a function of two or three things. One, the understanding that international investors have suddenly developed a curiosity in Pakistan.
Right.
You can't call it more than that, because ठीक है हमने 300 मिलियन कर लिया है, मगर in the big scheme of things India 12 बिलियन करता है.
सही बात है.
ठीक है, हमने 300 मिलियन अभी किया है. We should be at $1 billion.
Yes.
पहुंच जाएंगे अगले 2-3 साल में.
बिल्कुल.
And then I will say that curiosity has been replaced by actual ROI driven investing.
Exactly.
But at the same time, there's also an element of FOMO going
Huge.
on with some investors, as well as with some startups who are looking around and saying, यार ये किसने क्यों हम क्यों नहीं raise कर पा रहे हैं?
Exactly.
And I would say that you're definitely not in that camp, because you've been building for 5 years.
Yes, 4.
So completely not in that camp. But someone who's interested in the space would be wise to come and speak to you.
Yes.
And so when we post this video, we'll post a link to either your LinkedIn profile or an email address or whatever it is that you would like to share, so that people can reach out to you easily.
That'd be amazing. Yeah.
Yeah,
great.
I'm not really a huge fan of making things so difficult for people that they can't find you.
Yes.
When they're trying to find you.
Yeah.
Especially people who want to give you money potentially.
Yeah.
Right? So
we can publish our bank account numbers, whatever. Cut the middleman out so they can just transfer.
Just drop the money in, and we'll send you a safe note or something. This is awesome, yaar. So what advice do you have for the hundreds of startups that we have here at NIC, at NICs across Pakistan, there are literally now thousands of startups at various stages of development in Pakistan. What message do you have for them? What advice do you have for them?
There's so much. If I could, I would just love to unload all the pitfalls that I would want them to avoid that we fell into. It's just hard to put them or articulate all of them into this one session. But one thing that I would advise to do earlier on is you cannot improve what you can't measure. So if you've got a product out there, just make sure what metrics makes the most sense for you guys. If it's revenue, if it's GMV, if it's engagement time or whatever, just make sure that your measurability is set up from day one. So you would very quickly then be able to identify what levers or what triggers to pull or scale up or down in order for you to actually affect that particular metric as well. Have your North Star very clearly defined. Once you start to see movement going over there, then one of the biggest things that every startup worries about, and even when they achieve it, they're still worried about, is your product market fit, right? You'll achieve that very quickly once you know exactly what to get, to have specific numbers attached to that. So that's one of the most important thing that I'll tell them is to do that.
And it's one of the things that are most often missed out.
It does.
Because people don't take the time to build those dashboards up front.
Yeah.
And then it just falls by the wayside. Baad mein dekh lenge.
You fall in love with developing the product and not really iterating for the customer. So that if you've got that discipline set from day one, then everything else will fall into place later. Every part of your UI, UX, everything you want to do on marketing, that's all a function that just serves that particular goal. So if you stay focused on that, I think that would just get you your unlock that value for your end user quickly, and then eventually for you.
Excellent. And If given the opportunity, would you like to make a 30-second pitch right now to every investor out there?
Yeah, absolutely.
Go
Always
for
looking
it.
for that.
Go for it.
All right. So TelloTalk is addressing. TelloTalk is Pakistan's first fully homegrown messaging platform. What we are building is national social network rail on which services can be built on top, and we are targeting a very underserved and ignored section of society, which is the Pakistani youth. Gen Z in Pakistan alone are 63% of the total 200 million population. It's the only play that's allowed to do that, and we are building it completely locally in terms of content, in terms of language, in terms of infrastructure, and the services are being built on top almost on a daily basis. And we are growing at the rate of, we're doubling our user base, we're doubling all of our retention metrics every quarter. So we'd love for you to be a part of this journey and help a nation find its voice.
Wow, that was really very good. That was 60 seconds spot on. It looks like you practiced that.
Yeah.
That's another. We just did a session on pitching yesterday, and that was one of the key things that came out. That, you know, pitching is like a muscle.
Yeah.
It's an exercise.
Yeah.
So the more you do it, the better you get at it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that certainly sounds like a very attractive proposition. Shahbaz, it's been a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you, Umar.
Thank you so much for taking the time, and I'd like to thank you in advance for the next session that you're going to do now, which is you're going to speak to some of our startups at NIC, and, you know, share your advice and insights with them. Be ready. Our startups are extremely hungry. They love interacting. They will ask you a lot of tough questions. No apologies for that, but, you know, I'm sure that you'll handle yourself.
I expect nothing less than that, Umar, and very excited about that as an opportunity. And thank you so much for showcasing local startups and allowing us a space to come and talk to you and to talk to everybody who follows Nick as well. So thank you so much for that.
It's been a pleasure, and thank you to everyone out there. This has been a deep dive with OA, and this is Omar Abedin signing off with Shahbaz Ali Jamote. Thank you, Shahbaz.
Thank you, Umar.